Welcome to The Trade. Before we get into the charts, let's have a quick look at what traders are watching out there. Federal Reserve officials pointing to the large policy uncertainty around tariffs and other issues arising from the early days of President Trump's administration as among the top challenges in figuring out where to take US monetary policy in the months ahead. Mexican and US officials have agreed to ongoing and open dialogue on economic issues like strengthening regional supply chains and the traceability of foreign investment. We're also watching the dollar, though, fall to its lowest in more than a week as investor nerves about a potential global trade war abated while the Japanese yen rallied on the back of strong wages data. Gold prices continuing its record run on Wednesday, investors seeking the safe haven asset amid escalating concerns about a potential trade war, and oil prices down 2% due to a large build-up in US crude supplies. Let's get into the technicals now. Joining us is Nick Twidale from ATFX. Let's bring it back home and start with the Aussie. On Monday, hitting a 5-year low, the lowest we've seen since the global pandemic, although albeit 6 cents stronger than then. Yep. What are you seeing in the momentum in the Aussie?
I think we're still very much in a downtrend. We've seen a really nice rebound since that low, and that obviously came on the back of tariff threats, and then we've seen a nice pullback for risk because of the recession of those tariff threats, particularly against Mexico and Canada. But I think for the Aussie, the real danger is those Chinese tariffs and how things are going to continue to move there. And then we've got to look at local data as well. But unfortunately for the purists out there, really we're going to be dominated by what we're seeing out the US in the short term. And even though we're moving away from, say, the geopolitical concerns until a certain someone pokes his head up again.
The next headline, yeah.
We've got US data on Friday, which is going to be a big mover for all currencies.
When you're looking at that chart there, you think that it could fall below that red line you've got?
I think so, yeah. So that's the short-term support. I think we're going to be trading under 60 cents at some point relatively soon, and I think we might get fairly comfortable trading under 60 cents later in the year, which isn't always great news for everyone, especially when if we're looking to go anywhere. Yeah. But I think that's going to be the reality for us.
Parking my US trip for now. All right, let's have a look at the yen. I just mentioned that there had been some strength on some wages data. I guess as well, it may be coming back into safe haven too.
I think so. Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic that we've seen in the yen, and the yen was the most volatile currency that we've seen over the last year and the last few years. Really, if you look at this is the longer term daily chart. That was a really good break that we saw of that good. Support line that came in like all the way back from September 24, and we've even broken underneath the 200-day moving average on the dailies, which is quite a key move. I think some of the data we are seeing out of Japan will see more hikes from the Bank of Japan as well. We've kind of got to take the Fed out. There's a little bit more of an expectation. US yields came down fairly heavily yesterday, which kind of may push us a little bit further, pull us back along the curve with the Fed. So you take those interest rate differentials into consideration, but then once again we've just got to look at what's going on with the geopolitical situation and tariffs. Yen, obviously, we're in the Far East. I think we're going to see more volatility in the yen, and it can get very messy. But normally, when we're seeing safe haven trades, dollar yen will go higher, but we're seeing the yen appreciate. So a different dynamic coming into yen traders.
Yeah. Now, one country, as well as Australia, that Donald Trump has not mentioned so far is the UK. We've got Bank of England, though, interest rate decision today. What are we seeing in the pound?
Yeah, so we're fully priced in 25 basis point cut. I think there's an economist survey out there that sees the fair or neutral rate for the Bank of England somewhere between 3 and 3.5%. We're coming down to 4.25%. So there's a fair amount to go. Trading cable in particular is quite difficult, but we've seen some good moves. I left this chart in because that was a good resistance trend line and it broke well before the Bank of England, mainly on dollar weakness. But the positive for sterling, as you quite rightly pointed out, is that the UK has been sort of left to the side from Mr. Trump so far, and he said things are okay, might be a bit of a tweak. Trade relations with Europe are increasing, getting better as well. So it's there's a lot of good news for sterling out there, but you've still got concerns in data as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how cable trades.
Well, when you talk about Europe, though, he did say tariffs there are coming, and you saw the euro tumble. What is it doing now? Because you've also had Eurozone inflation.
Yeah, euro pulled back nicely off the bat, and that, once again, similar to the Aussie, we saw a hard low on Monday. It's pulled back nicely, and it's sitting on that sitting on a really good resistance trend line from a technical perspective. This is the daily charts again, so it looks a little bit small. That's why I've got my glasses on. I think you'll find traders fading this move with the stop above that trend line and that previous high that you can see coming in there around 105 something. It's going to be interesting. I think we will see, my personal opinion is we will see tariffs out the US at some point against Mexico, Canada and Europe, as well as China.
Yeah.
I don't think that's particularly positive for the euro. So I kind of want to bring back in the sterling and the Bank of England. I think the cut's fully priced in. If we do see more aggression towards Europe on the tariff front, then I think euro sterling's a good trade to the downside.
All right, well, let's get to the loonie, because of course it had that huge slump on Monday, but it has recovered somewhat.
Yeah, I couldn't leave the loonie out, and you can't at the moment. I mean, look at that volatility that we've seen. I left that topside resistance trend line. That's the former high, and we smashed through it on Monday, as one would expect, and we're back into that range. But it is going to continue trading on this tariff threat and how the updates come through. We normally see the loonie trading very closely with oil as well. Oil took a bit of a dip, so you'd expect there's probably going to be a bit of dollar buying coming in at these levels. That technical level is quite a good one. As you can see, there's been a lot of consolidation before we saw the break around these levels. So I think there will be some buyers coming in around here.
All right, Nick, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Nick
Thank you.
Twidale from ATFX, looking at all things technical when it comes to currencies. That does it for this edition of The Trade. Be sure to join us next time.